There are a lot of ankle brace options out there, especially a lot of options in terms of levels of support, but it's sometimes really hard to tell which one you should get for your particular needs, if any of them. So let's get into it. And before I get into the deep end of the pool of ankle brace science, I do want to thank Zamst for sending me these particular braces over to sponsor this video and to sponsor this ankle brace educational series. However, all opinions on them are still my own, pros and cons and who's best for what, still all my own opinions. So let's get into it. And speaking of this series of videos, as I've said in previous videos, there's a lot of reasons why an athlete would want to wear a brace, the most common being tendonitis or ankle sprains. And the role of an ankle brace is somewhat multifactorial. Yes, some of them are meant to be a physical motion blocker like the Zamst A2DX that Steph Curry and Trae Young wear. However, there's others that are meant to be partially motion blocking, partially proprioceptive, and some are meant to be just purely compressive or proprioceptive. Remember, anything you put around your ankle is going to give your brain some extra data points about where your foot and ankle are in space. Because after an ankle injury, those data points can become corrupted or malfunction, and that extra data can be used to keep you balanced. It's like being on 2 wheels versus 4. And so that brings me to the first category of ankle braces, and that is ankle sleeves like the Zamst Filmista ankle. Now, some sleeves go around your ankle like a sock. Others, like the Filmista ankle here, actually will Velcro across it and you can actually get a little bit more compression. Braces like the Filmista work mostly on compression for localized edema, mild support, as well as proprioception. These are good for less severe tendonitis or retraining an ankle after an ankle sprain after you've rehabbed a little bit. The stretching material in these mimics your soft tissues, so if you have tendonitis and you wear one, when you feel the fabric stretching, that's a good indication the tendon underneath is stretching too. Same with an ankle ligament. It's just another sensation of inversion that mimics the ankle, letting your brain know, kind of when to course correct. And the reason I like the Zamst Filmista ankle is some ankle sleeves you can't wear directly on your skin, whereas these you can wear it directly on your skin and giving you that much more proprioception. The other thing I like about the Zamst is because there is so many little connection points on here, right? You can tighten it or just kind of get it more customized to your ankle versus some others. Also, if you feel the material, I know it's hard to kind of convey that on a video, but if you feel the material, it's an anti-slip material, so it's not going to want to move up and down. So you can put it directly on your skin and it's going to stay there even if you are sweating really heavily. It does its best work directly on skin. That's where it gives your brain the most feedback. And because this is so low profile, I mean, yeah, there is a little bit of thickness to it, but you definitely do not have to go up a size on shoes like some others. That's a lot of the reasons why I like this one versus others. It just gives you some more options to play around with. Plus it gave me just enough compression around there to keep my ankle from wanting to expand. And moving on to the next category, that is semi-constraining devices like the Zamst A1. And these types of braces can offer compression and support like the first category, like the Filmista, but they also start to offer more physical barriers to spraining and straining, especially in eversion and inversion, as well as some dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. Now, these semi-constraining devices, number one, have material on them that is, flexible, but it is going to blunt a lot of force. Like in the Zamst A1, actually is a nice flexible material all around it, but in the meat of it, you have these stays underneath of it, which kind of like a semi-flexible, semi-rigid plastic, and connected through all of these Velcro straps. That's what creates that semi-rigid device, which means that you can wear this and not have to crank on laces on it to get it to stay tight. It's going to stay tight based on all the different Velcro points and all different attachment points. So it kind of separates this one from some other semi-constraining devices. This one also has an L and a Y strap, which really protect, number one, the ATFL, but also the CFL, which are the two most commonly sprained ankle ligaments. Some other braces will just kind of half cross both of them, whereas this one has specific resistance points against both of those ligaments. That's why I like this one the most. It also has a strap around here that compresses around that anterior inferior tib fib ligament, or the syndesmosis, which is that giant piece of celery between your legs. So if you're going to get a semi-constraining device, you better get one with a strap here like the Zamst A1, because that will cover all of your bases, especially because, like I said, on the bottom of it, it's also covering those two specific ligaments. So really, no matter what you're spraining, something like this is gonna have you covered. And the nice thing with the semi-constraining device is you can wear it for both tendinitis, you can wear it for ankle spraining, you can also wear it for compression, right? Like I said, some of them are gonna work on a tie down, which for me, I've always found can kind of give me some neuritis or nerve pain, whereas something like the Zamst, because it Velcros in the back and then it has all these different strap attachment points, you can really get it to compress exactly where you want it to, and it's not gonna be super uncomfortable. So it's easier to find the balance between how tight you're cranking it down and how comfortable it's gonna be, because if you're playing, let's say, basketball or tennis, you know, if you're gonna be out there for 2 hours, it better be comfortable for those 2 hours. The other thing with a semi-constraining device is it's still gonna allow inversion and eversion. It's just going to blunt those forces. So, you know, if a center comes down and steps on your foot and inverts it, this will still allow, you know, a little bit of that inversion. It's like I said, it's just going to slow everything down. It's almost like, you know, in Star Wars, like where a Jedi, just everything kind of slows down around them and they're able to react quicker. That's what this is gonna do. It just gives your ankle more time to react, and it will, like I said, completely stop some inversion and eversion forces if the force doesn't get super high. And even though the Zamst A2DX, the more rigid device, I think is just more widely known because, you know, Steph Curry and Trae Young, that you see it all the time in the NBA, I would say the A1 is probably the more widely used by more people, just because I think its applications are so broad. You can use it for things that the Filmista is used for. It can be used for things that a more rigid brace is used for. And it kind of gets into that, you know, grade 2, grade 1 ankle sprain category, which is, you know, the most common injury you're going to see in most sports, right, that you're going to use a brace for. Plus, for tendinitis, it's really good because you get a little bit higher of a support structure, plus you can kind of dial in the compression of it. So I'd say the most common brace out there, definitely like the A1 in that semi-constraining category. But if you want to get more support and more rigid support, you're going to go to something like the A2DX. And remember, with the A2DX, I mean, I've done a whole video on these and why I think they're so unique. Remember, a rigid device is going to be more rigid. It's going to allow the least amount of motion. Now, in a lot of rigid device braces, they're rigid throughout the entire brace, which means you get pretty much no motion. And with an over-the-counter brace being really rigid, a lot of times that's gonna create more issues than it solves. Whereas with the A2DX, because it is rigid starting right around the subtalar joint, you're still allowed all that foot motion, which is great. With the A2DX, it's meant to blunt inversion and eversion ankle forces, which are the abnormal ones. You still wanna be able to have inversion and eversion of your foot because that's how your foot moves. So with the A2DX having these rigid plastic straps up top, plus these crossing X straps on the bottom that give a lot of support to the foot, this is really the best of both worlds on a rigid device. Now, some people are going to need completely rigid devices. Those are typically really arthritic joints, people that aren't really playing sports. If you're trying to play high-level sports, it's hard to do that in a completely rigid brace because your foot and leg, I should say your ankle, becomes more of a peg leg. You're not gonna have the ability to roll from one step to the other smoothly, and so then your other ankle is gonna take up a lot of that motion, your knee, your hip. Those are the things that are starting to really hurt your lower back. So in terms of a rigid device playing sports, the A2DX to me is the best one out there, just because, like I said, it allows all that normal motion of the foot. Plus, because it doesn't really have any bulk on the bottom of it, you can still wear an orthotic in your shoe with these, which I think is the best part of these. Whereas a lot of rigid ankle braces, you cannot do that because there's so much bulk down in the bottom of them. So let's say you need something for ball of foot pain because you have a really high arched foot. That high arched foot is also causing you to sprain your ankle over and over and over again. Then the A2DX plus an orthotic is a super pickup. It just allows so many more options for you for all those little snake bites or lumps and bumps you might have on your foot plus your ankle. And there are a lot of reasons why you would have to wear an ankle brace indefinitely. You just have to wear it anytime you play. Someone that's had a grade 3 ankle sprain, completely tears, you haven't had surgery, there's just nothing there. Yeah, you're gonna need something to act as that ligament. Also, if you're someone that has had multiple repeated tendon tears, right? And that tendon now is just kind of like a piece of celery that there's no flexibility to it. You're gonna need something to support that tendon. However, no brace is a substitute for proper rehabilitation of an injury. You can't just throw a brace on and expect your ankle ligament to heal itself. That's not how it works. You still need to rehab it. You still need to go through the proper protocol, and you still need to get your own body to start responding to stimulus. Remember, braces are a training aid. They are an aid to things, and for some people, yes, they are a necessary part of just your standard uniform. Number one, you got to figure out what's the exact brace you need. Number two, what that brace can do and specifically what it can't do. You can't have a grade 3 ankle sprain and put on the Filmista. Same thing, you can't put the A2DX on and think it's going to be a super low profile sleeve. You really got to match what your needs are with the brace, and you really have to marry the brain training, the proprioceptive training, as well as strength training with which brace you're using to rehab. It kind of all meshes together. It isn't just all one or the other. So just make sure you keep that in mind. And if you have any questions about any of these braces whatsoever, please leave me a comment down below. We'll be answering all the questions in the comments down below about these braces. And if you want to take a deep dive into why Steph Curry and Trae Young are wearing this specific brace, the A2DX, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect rubber and foam, as well as anti-migration grip material. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.